Hi, folks. My name is Lindsay Birch. I am a member of the Point West Rotary Club here in Sacramento. Yay, Desiree, fellow member of Point West. It's lovely to see all of your faces via Zoom. Thank you so much for joining us for District 5180's Festival of Learning. I know from the pre-show chatter that many of you have attended a lot of other events, and we appreciate the support. This is what is keeping our district and our Sacramento Rotary Club members connected, even though we're in a place where we have to be virtual right now. I want to really get right to the presentation tonight, which is going to be about social media practices, something that I think all of us can agree is definitely important, especially in this ever more virtual world that we live in as Rotary members. So just a few Zoom etiquette type of things, which I'm sure everyone is completely familiar with. We do ask that you mute yourselves for the duration of the presentation. There will be a time after the presentation to ask questions, give some thoughts, comments, and if something comes to you during the presentation and you don't want to lose your thought, feel free to put it in the chat box. I will be monitoring that. Then I'll go back at the end and say, oh, we had an earlier question, and get to that. If you need to, please take care of your needs. If you need to eat, drink, go to the restroom, just feel free to turn off your video and do those things. We know that this is the Zoom world, so no harm done there. And then at the end, if you'd like to ask your question out loud, you're of course able to use the raised hand function. It's under the reactions button, which should be on your far right of your Zoom screen, the bar at the bottom. As you can see, I'm raising my hand now, and then we can lower your hand once your question is answered. I think that's about all that I have. We are so thrilled to have all of you joining us, and it is now my pleasure to, oh, just one more thing. As I think everybody knows, we are recording this session, so full transparency, you are being recorded for your knowledge. But now it is my pleasure to turn over this social media best practices session to a member of East Sacramento Rotary Club, an amazing Rotarian who I've just gotten, I read about her through this presentation and through email, but very much excited to hear this talk from Marcia Vaca. Marcia, I will now spotlight you. I'm gonna go away, and please take it away.
Thank you, Lindsay. Don't go too far away. Not too far away.
Not too far.
I love it. Not too far away. I love it. Thank you so much, Lindsay, for the intro. Thank you again to each one of you for being present tonight, for taking time out of your own lives and busy schedules to spend 45 minutes talking about social media and what it means to your club. So here's what we're actually going to cover tonight. I promise I won't talk quite as fast as I did last week. Some of you I recognize from last week's program. So I was so concerned about getting through all the information last week. I really sped up my speech. I know that can be difficult to listen to even for a few minutes. So hopefully I'll pace myself a little better tonight. But first I want to tell you what it is we're actually going to cover tonight. We're going to talk about what is social media. And that may seem like, duh, why do we have to talk about that? But I've got some interesting history of social media that I'm going to share with you, that I thought some fun facts would be a cool way to start off this session. And because we are looking at the issue of social media, we're going to answer the question, hopefully, as to why. Why is it important for us as Rotarians to be involved with social media? And then lastly, I want to share with you some of the key social media platforms that your club might consider being involved in. Maybe you already are, maybe you're thinking about things, don't know exactly how to approach it. And so we want to look at some of those key platforms that might be helpful to your club and what your purposes and goals are all about. So thank you again for being here. And Lindsay, go ahead and go to our very first slide on what's social media. Now, there are a number of ways to sort of define social media, but to me, the easiest way to define social media is it's just ways in which we have chosen to connect online since this online world came into existence. So social media can be defined as everything from all the emails that you send out, all the websites, Facebook, WhatsApp, Pinterest even is considered to be a social media site. WeChat and TikTok. I think most of us have heard of TikTok. WeChat and TikTok are actually based out of China. So I just want you to know that it's not just the Canadians and the Americans who come up with all these social media platforms. There's many bright people across the world who have entered into this world of online social media and the various platforms. Next slide. I thought it would be sort of fun to take a look back as to where have we been with the internet and the whole development of social media. Just as quick reminders, 1983, the internet was born. And it was soon after that that the World Wide Web, WWW, came into being. 31 years old now this year, and we're finally at age 31. As you probably begin to see people, we don't put www dot in front of our websites or addresses anymore. Like for my club, you can just type in esacrotary.com and you'll be taken right to our club website. So we've come a long way in 31 years. Anybody remember CompuServe? CompuServe was the very first, you had to pay for it, commercial service on the internet, connecting people together. I remember way back when having a CompuServe account. So I've been on the web and on the internet since almost the inception. 6 Degrees became in 1997 the very first social networking site that was available, and it was very close to that same time that blogging sites became available. WordPress is probably one that you might recognize because WordPress is a very popular blogging site that a lot of people use. And when I was going back into this history, I ran across Myspace, and I just had to laugh. I'd totally forgotten there was such a thing as Myspace. And that was developed in 2003. It was primarily used by teenagers, 25 million users at its peak in 2005. That's a lot of people. Facebook came into being in 2004, and the original purpose was just to connect college students. But 17 years now have gone by, and we realize it's probably, and it is, I'll share with you in a few minutes, it is the largest social media platform in use around the world today. And Farmville, 2009. I don't know if any of you remember family members, particularly parents, used to, and my grandparents, they used to think it was so cool to try to get all of the family on Farmville so we could play Farmville together. That's gone through a lot of variations. Even there were some movies and other things put out there on the web for Farmville, but I'm not part of Farmville anymore. Next slide. Emojis. You know, some of you may or may not use emojis when you are putting things up on Facebook or even in an email or whatever. I think a lot of us think emojis are relatively new, but they really aren't. They're 22 years old. They first started appearing on Japanese mobile pictures. So lots of emojis now. In fact, it's a primary way in which millennials and those younger really communicate emotions and what they're feeling. You may be one of those too. LinkedIn came into being in 2003, really trying to provide some balance to Myspace. As I indicated, Myspace really was taken over by teenagers. LinkedIn came into being to be a business-related Myspace for adults. And it's one of the largest social media sites today. We're going to talk more about that. YouTube, 2005, Twitter, 2006. Now, Twitter, the interesting thing about Twitter is that came in just as a site in which you would quickly use maybe 180 characters max to communicate a quick message. And Twitter is how we got to hashtags. So the whole issue of a hashtag, like you do a hashtag ESAC Rotary or hashtag District 5180, that all was due to Twitter. And in 2017, they doubled the character usage. So Twitter now allows 280 characters in one tweet. And they also launched the IGTV program platform that allows for a 1 hour video instead of like a 1 minute quick video on Twitter. So Twitter's evolved over time. Pinterest is considered to be a social media platform. In fact, it's often called the digital cocaine for adult women. That's not me saying that. That is how it's referred to in the history of social media. So you may be very involved in Pinterest. Again, it's evolved from when it first started in 2010. Instagram, really, we use Instagram so much, but it's not that old. It only started in 2010. Snapchat, which maybe your children or grandchildren, nieces and nephews, you've heard them talk about it. It's primarily used by the younger generation again, and it's because anything you put up on Snapchat goes away in 24 hours. So it was a way in which younger kids sort of get out of the line sight of their parents, so their parents don't see everything that they're posting. But most parents have gotten pretty wise to that. 2012, Facebook, after coming into being in 2004, 8 years later, hit 1 billion users. And they were the first social media site to do that, to hit that 1 billion user mark. And then there's great debate about when selfies came into being. Paris Hilton likes to think that she was the one who invented the whole concept of selfies in 2006, but Helen DeGeneres claims to really be the one that kicked off selfies with a selfie from 2014 in the Academy Awards. Who knows, but don't we all love taking selfies these days? So all of this, when you look at it, it's still relatively new. And so I think we're all learning, particularly this past year, how to make better use of social media platforms. Next slide. So again, like I say, why is this even important to us as Rotarians? Because amongst all the social media networking sites and platforms that are available, look at that number there, 3.6 billion users, 3.6 billion. That is a lot of people in this world that are using one social media platform or maybe multiples. Facebook is the most popular. It has 2.74 billion monthly users. That's monthly, friends. Think about that number. And Facebook, in case you didn't know, they now own WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, and Instagram. Combined, those are over 3 billion monthly users on those platforms. So you're going to have lots of faces, lots of contact, lots of opportunities to interact if you're on any of those platforms. YouTube has 2.3 million users. WhatsApp has 2 million. Messenger 1.3. I know I live on Facebook Messenger in my work and my life. Instagram has a little over 1 million, and LinkedIn has 740 million members. So there's a reason we have to care, because this is the way, particularly for millennials and younger folks who have grown up with the internet and with social media just as part of their life. It's so critically important for us to communicate our message through social media platforms that that group is aware of, engaged with, involved with on a regular basis. But do we as clubs, do we have to get involved in all that big long list that I showed you of the different types of social media? No, we don't. I think there's some key ones we can look at being involved in. And so I want you to take a look at some of these with me tonight. And before I go any further and really begin to sort of maybe show you all sorts of data, I want to let you know you will be getting a copy of these slides. So I don't want you to feel like you're having to write like crazy and make notes like crazy. Make the notes that you need to make tonight, but then know that you will see a copy of these slides again. So now what I'd like to do is take us into taking a look as to which social media platforms your club may consider being involved in. Next slide. The first one, you might have thought I was going to say Facebook, since that was the most popular and the largest of all these platforms, but no, I'm taking you to LinkedIn first. And I don't know how many of you in your clubs are already involved in LinkedIn, but this is a professional group of people. And if you look at the number of interactions on LinkedIn, 1 billion plus interactions per month, and look at the largest age group that's using LinkedIn. It's the 46 to 55-year-old group, and they have incomes of 75,000 and above. The US uses LinkedIn much more so than any other area of the world. But what I found fascinating was that 60% of the user base of LinkedIn are millennials. 87 million millennials are on LinkedIn. And out of that group of 87 million, it's estimated about 11 million of those millennials are in decision-making positions within their companies. So college graduates are going to LinkedIn to connect with business leaders, business people. The millennials are in those positions, decision-making positions, looking at hiring some of those college kids and college students. So it is a great potential place for us as Rotarians if we not only want to be reaching a professional class of people, but also for the younger group of millennials and younger. But important to note on LinkedIn, go back up to that third bullet, because this is really important to pay attention to. You only have about 17 minutes a month per user to get their attention. So what you do on LinkedIn has to be very strategic. You have to be very clear as to why you're on LinkedIn, what's your key message, who's going to manage the postings on LinkedIn, what are you going to post on LinkedIn. We'll come back and talk a little bit about that for all of these platforms. But really, when you think 17 minutes per month per user, that is a very, very short time frame in which to capture someone's attention with your message. So LinkedIn is a great place to be, but just be aware you've got that short time frame in which to really get people engaged. Next slide. So now I'm going to take a look at Facebook with you. It is the most popular site, as I've indicated, almost 2.5 billion active monthly users. And what's fascinating about Facebook is that the fastest growing age group that's using Facebook is the 65 plus crowd. It's not the younger crowd, it's not the millennials, it's the 65 plus crowd. It's a great way for families to connect. Many families do connect over Facebook on a regular basis. They're 75% of the people that use Facebook use it each and every day. And the highest percent of users are right here in the United States. And it is the most used platform across all demographics, across all age groups. There's been a little bit of a drop in the usage of Facebook by teenagers and that younger, say 25 to 40-year-old age group. But that's just statistics, and statistics are important to look at. But again, that doesn't mean that your club should not be involved in Facebook and have a Facebook presence and a Facebook page. Here's when the highest traffic is found on Facebook. It's midday on Wednesdays and Thursdays. It's not the weekends, it's not Mondays. So again, if you're wanting to really focus on how to get people's eyes on your message, just be aware that Facebook knows that the highest traffic on Facebook happens midday on Wednesdays and Thursdays, which means if you're going to post, when should you post? you should be posting on Wednesdays and Thursdays. That's when the most eyes are going to be on that post. And with Facebook, it really is all about the customer experience. Facebook has this thing called an algorithm, and they track every piece of data, which you may have heard in the news and heard during Senate hearings, congressional hearings over this past year. They track all sorts of data. They know exactly what you're looking at, what you're maybe buying or not buying. They know how long you click into a video or a program, or how long you actually go to a particular site of a sponsored vendor, someone who's paid money for their ads to show up in your feed. And that's how they actually know what kinds of ads to put into your Facebook feed, is all this algorithm stuff that's going on in the background. One of the things I'd have you make note of is that most of you, I hope most of you are on Facebook, but you know how you can go in and you can like a post, love a post, share it, leave a comment, you know, use those emojis, etc. Here's what gets your post raised up in Facebook's algorithm, so they show it to more people. If you heart it, not just like it, but put the red heart, you love that post, right? So when you post something on your club's Facebook page, you need to get your members in there to click that little red heart saying they love that post. And also you need to get as many of your members as possible to share the post. And what that does is it raises your presence within the algorithm up higher, which means Facebook, on the backside, you never know this is happening, but on the backside, they're going to make sure more people who might like that same thing or love that same thing, they're going to have more of an opportunity to actually see that. So it's important how you do work with Facebook and that particular platform. Next slide. The other place to look is Instagram. And I know some of the clubs do have Instagram accounts. There's just a little over 1 billion users on Instagram. Again, the United States is the leading group, customer group for Instagram. Most are female, which I thought was interesting. And people are on Instagram about 30 minutes a day. So you've got sort of a decent amount of time to capture someone's attention. Note, though, that most people use Instagram through their smartphones, these wonderful little gadgets, right? So you need to then make sure that whatever you're posting on Instagram works well and shows up good on a mobile device, not necessarily a website or a desktop. So those are all important things to remember as you think about how you're going to put information up on Instagram. But look at that next bullet. 81% of the users of Instagram go to Instagram to do research. Research on different products, different vendors, different organizations, different service groups. So that's an important figure to cue in on and be aware that you can have a great impact and have a lot of eyes on your Instagram post if you're doing it the right way. Now look at the final bullet then again, because this becomes very important again as to when do you put up information on Instagram so as many eyes as possible end up on it. Well, the most used times are 8 a.m. to 12 noon Pacific Standard Time and 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And that's pretty much true across any day of the week. So just again, if you're looking at possibly doing an Instagram account for your club, be aware of some of this kind of information so you can know how best to get the best value out of the time that you're going to put into an Instagram account. Next slide. Twitter. Oh, I'm going to talk Twitter for a few minutes. Wonderful hashtags that they gave us. 187 million daily users on Twitter, again, the United States. has the largest group of users. But look at this, instead of females being primary on Twitter, like on Instagram, it's men who are on Twitter the most, 54%. And look at the age breakdown. Again, it's that younger millennial group and younger group that is on Twitter and using Twitter. The other thing that I would point out to you, news organizations, everything from local news, TV, radio, magazines, it's that news place to go. 59% of users go to Twitter to get their news. They don't tune in to channel 10 or 3 or 40. They go to Twitter. That's where they're picking up their news. So that's important to be aware of. And the translation of these emojis, I love the way this translated out as I pass this on to Lindsay. But the two most used emojis, let me tell you what they're trying to show there, is the one that's laughing and crying with tears, because they're laughing so hard, they're tearing up and crying, that emoji, along with the emoji of sobbing, just tears, 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 and a sad face. Those are the two most frequently used emojis on Twitter. So the emoji world has really expanded the way in which we can communicate in a digital environment our emotions and our feelings. And so you'll see all sorts of emojis. If you're on Facebook or you're on Instagram or Twitter, even on LinkedIn, you'll find all sorts of emojis being used because people have come to be very comfortable with them. As Rotarians, emojis can be very effective, but we also need to ensure the fact that we're still communicating our message in such a way that it doesn't just take an emoji to express our message and our story to the rest of the world. And remember, Twitter is where we got hashtags from. So next slide. So, okay, we've covered LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Those are 4 social media platforms that your club may already be involved in, or you're involved in 1 or 2 of those and been thinking about doing another one. So what do you do? What do you do with this kind of information? Where do you go from here? Well, it's really all about your club and what your goals are. And before you get involved in any social media platform, you really need to have a very, what I call a very strategic conversation with your club board, and determine, why do you want a Facebook page? How are you going to use it? What audience are you trying to reach? Who's going to oversee the Facebook page? Who's going to keep feeding it information at least probably a couple of times a week to keep, again, that algorithm picking up your messages and your stories so you get as many eyes on it as possible. So first and foremost, figure out, why do you even want to be on that particular social media platform? You don't have to do it all. And I have to tell you right now, and you're going to probably hear me say this about 3 times tonight, at least 3 times. Once you get involved in social media, whether it's LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, you know, WhatsApp, TikTok, I mean, any of these kind of places, you have to feed the beast, as we call it. Feed the beast, which means your club has to be committed from the day you put it in place to making sure that you've got someone who knows what they're doing and will make a commitment to putting up the information, the post, on that particular social media site. Otherwise, what happens is it sits there in the cyber world, and basically you won't have any eyes on it. Nobody will know it even exists. And it just sits there. Because the only way that you can take down these social media sites is that the person who originally put it up with their name, their email, they developed a username and password, their phone number. If you don't have that information, it is near impossible to take down a social media site that's been put up and established. So don't be going about doing this just because you're looking initially tonight at some of this stuff and thinking, oh, that'd be great. Oh, we haven't done Twitter. We should do Twitter. No, you shouldn't. No, you shouldn't. You need to have a very clear communication plan, strategy, and a commitment over years, not just months, not just this year, but years, and how you're going to pass down the login information such that if something happens to the individual, like if I put up my club's Facebook page, something happened to me, my club needs to know how to continue on, or potentially they might want to take the site down at some point. If I'm only the holder of the data, they're not going to be able to take down that Facebook page. It becomes very, very difficult. So determine what your purpose is. Why do you want to use that social media platform? What audience are you trying to reach? And then determine what your narrative, what your messaging, what your themes for any of your posts are going to be about. And I really highly encourage you to use the Rotary International monthly themes, because we can build our message and our story about our clubs and how we're involved in clean water and hygiene, in maternal and child health, in the environment. I mean, these are all Rotary International monthly themes, and we can build our message off that and show the connection in what our clubs are doing here at the local level in those key areas of focus for Rotary International. But again, you need to lay that out in a plan for the year so you know where you're headed and what your posts are going to be about each month. Determine your visuals. It is all about, as I said, Facebook is definitely all about the best user or consumer experience. And that includes all the photographs you put up, all the videos that you put up. You need to have good, solid visuals if you're going to be on these social platforms. Instagram, it's visual. Twitter, it's visual, but you've got those words and characters that you can put up there. LinkedIn, that's the verbal, the written message primarily, but you also do want to add some good pictures, maybe a video on LinkedIn. Why? Because that's what engages people. That's what keeps them on your site and on your platform. And that's exactly what companies like Facebook and Twitter, they want you to keep people engaged because they want people on their platforms for as long as possible. So we have some absolutely outstanding materials available to us through the Rotary International Brand Center website and location. I talked about some of that briefly last week, but there's just so many, many good stories and videos and PowerPoints and other things that we can use if your club doesn't have the ability to produce your own things. So never feel like you're at the mercy of just the capability of your own club members. Some clubs have people who are very nerdy and techie and know how to take great pictures and make videos and all this. Well, not all of our clubs are like that. So you've got great tools on the Rotary International website. And then determine your timing. How many times every week, and notice I keep saying every week, some sites you're really better if you do things daily, but you've got to at least be putting up things a couple times a week. Otherwise, you know, you're just not going to get eyes on it, and you won't be able to engage enough people to keep them interested. So the most important message I can give you before your club does anything on social media, be aware that once you get it set up, you got to feed the beast on a regular basis. Then you've got to obviously then be consistent. Be consistent with what you're doing on that site. Know always why you're putting up what you're putting up. Don't just throw stuff up there just because if you get into that kind of headset and attitude about it as a club, then you shouldn't be doing it. You should not be up on social media unless your club makes a very long-term commitment to it. So next slide. So here's just a few tips and hints, again, about how to best use social media. Learn what the best practices are for each site that you're looking at using. Facebook loves images that have less than 20% text. And I'm going to ask you folks in a few minutes if you'd like some additional training on how to write a good Facebook post. But be aware, again, images and videos are really what most of these platforms are looking for. Facebook can handle a little longer written post, but don't make it too long because there's a chance people will click away and they won't read your whole message. So you've got to write good copy for each one of these social media sites and learn how to do that. Maintain good brand identity. We talked about this last week about how important this year is going to be for all of our clubs to be consistent with the Rotary International branding and make sure that our club images all are consistent and recognizable, because again, we want to be able to clearly communicate our message. I often say to people, confused buyers do not buy. Confused consumers do not consume. And we as Rotarians may think we don't have buyers, we don't have customers or consumers. Yeah, we do. We do. It's everything from elected officials to fellow service club people, to other nonprofits in our community, to business people, to other community leaders. We've got a huge audience. We have a huge group of consumers, and we need to figure out the best way to communicate our story and our message such that they will consume it and they will come to understand what Rotary is all about and how exciting it is to be part of a Rotary club. Make sure you're always following copyright laws, both in your visual and in your copy. If you're using someone else's video, if you're using someone else's music, if you're using someone else's copy, you have got to make sure you're at least giving credit where credit is due. And this something particularly with the video and the music industry, they come down pretty hard on. And literally YouTube and Facebook and even Twitter and Instagram, they'll pull your stuff down if you're not abiding by the correct laws for that particular media. There are a number of free resources, which I'd be happy to share more about those free resources. The one, of course, is anything off from Rotary International you can use. And there's other places where you can develop your own post for Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. There's one free source actually called Canva, and it has some wonderful backgrounds and lots of templates that are already sized correctly for the media platform that you're going to use. We'll talk more about that. So I don't even know what time it is, but with that, let's go to the last slide, Lindsay, just because, or the next slide, I should say, just because I want you folks to, as you pose some questions tonight, raise other issues, maybe share some more information that I've forgotten to share. I'm not, while I'm in the online world each and every day, it's part of my business, it's part of what I do for a living. I still don't know everything that there is to know. So I would love to be able to know from you folks what you would like in additional training. Would you like some training on how to write copy for Facebook, how to write a good press release, how to get local media attention to your club, to your activity? What actually gets stories the attention that you're looking for, regardless of which platform you're on? And maybe there's other topics that you would like some training on. I would love to know that, because as your incoming District 5180 Public Image Director, I want to make myself available to you to do whatever I can to support what you and your club are attempting to do as you communicate the Rotary message into your local community. So with that, questions, and you can go ahead, Lindsay, take a look, see if there's anything posted in the chat. You can also unmute yourself if you've got a question and would like to ask a question. And if I don't have the answer, I'll tell you, and I will get an answer for you.
Yes. So, oh, sorry. I hope that's not my echo. Hopefully not. Anyway, I do have a question in the chat, and I stopped sharing the presentation. So if you need me to throw up another slide, just let me know, or one of the previous slides. I did put the emojis that you mentioned. I apologize, those are not there. I put those in the chat.
Okay, good.
Desiree Wilson asks, what makes a good picture on social media?
What makes a good picture? And I'm going to assume you mean a still picture, not a video, but just a good still picture. Well, number one, people want to see people's faces. They don't care about usually anything from the waist down, unless your story is about something from the waist down. The shoes that someone has on, the puddle of mud that the whole group is working in and stomping around in. So usually the tighter shot, that's more face oriented. That shows a little bit of action, positiveness, smiles, not the grumpies, and with appropriately blurred out backgrounds. You don't want so much data, so much information in your picture that it takes away from what your primary picture is all about. So if you're going to be having 3 people with their arms around each other, you know, saying great job, then make sure the focus is on them and not on that tree growing out of one of their heads, you know. So I mean, it's sort of that kind of thing. In fact, here's the thing, I'm also a photographer and done a lot of photography work, and I know we've got plenty of other Rotarians that are much better than me. But if any of you would like some lessons on how to use your smartphone, particularly smartphones, to do video and photography, be happy to set that up.
Awesome. Just looking at comments in the chat, Ken Fong said, and people doing things. So action shots for social media, especially for Rotarians who are obviously so active in our community. Desiree, it just says that might be a good training, how to use your smartphone to take pictures and videos.
Sure.
And I'll just kind of keep going. Are there any other questions? I want to thank you, Marcia. You know, I'm of the generation who was not born into social media, but it's been a big part of my life. I was on Myspace as a teenager, and to sort of see the evolution of it, it's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And so it's not something, it's almost something we just assume as part of our lives and we don't think about why. So
yeah. There you go.
Any
other questions, comments? If you want to just unmute yourself and share, that's great. How much more time have we got?
Looks like about 15 minutes.
Okay.
Of course, you know, if we want to go to more of an informal, I mean, I guess it's up to Mary Jo, Desiree, but if we want to go to a more informal chat type of thing, then.
Oh, we only have about 3 minutes.
Oh, we end at 7:45. Oh,
7:45.
Okay. I apologize then, because it was on my calendar for an hour, so I was ready to be here. So we're gonna end at 7:45. So we'll just any other questions?
Any last minute comments, questions before we do wrap up for tonight?
I would just like to say real quick that Marcia, I really appreciate your offering any training that people want, and I really hope you all take advantage and let us know what kind of training you want. That's the purpose of the district is to help to support you in your clubs and what you want to do. Marcia has a wealth of information, and let's take advantage of that. So thank you, Marcia, for offering that. And please,
You bet, Desiree. You bet.
people, take
Yeah,
advantage of that.
And I do mean it sincerely, folks. And I know sometimes you'll hear people offer their help and assistance and it doesn't show up. But Desiree knows that I show up. So if you reach out to me,
Yes.
in fact, my final slide had my cell phone number and my email on it. We'll make sure you've got it. And so I live by text. I'm one of those. I live my life on my smartphone by text and email. And so I truly do want you folks to know that you can reach out to me and you will get a response from me. And I want to be able to bring to you the kind of training and support as we come into this year and during Desiree's year that that I possibly can, because I am obviously very nerdy about this stuff and very committed to it, and realize how important it is that Rotary gets its message out to the community, that we're not the best kept secret in town, and that we really do impact our communities and show our communities that we are making significant strides and changing our communities for the better, and doing that through each of our clubs, little by little, piece by piece, service project by service project. And we've just got a wonderful story to tell. So I get very excited about that.
Nicely said, Marcia. Thank you so very much. We also have Mary Jo Edmondson, the incoming district trainer, on the session tonight, and she's taken notes about any training, further training that people want. So we're here to help.
All right, if I know this is being recorded, but I'm gonna stop sharing Marcia's contact. I hope if folks need it, they've gotten a chance to write that down or take a screenshot. I just want to thank everyone for attending, and of course Marcia and Desiree, Mary Jo, Karen Sendro, everyone who's put this together and made this happen, and all the other tech volunteers who I don't get to see because they are running their own sessions. And then thank you all for attending. And Mary Jo and Desiree, I guess I can end the meeting. I know that you're the host, so if that's good, go ahead and end the meeting. And just want to thank you all for being here, and have a great rest of your Tuesday.
Thanks, Lindsay. Thank you all for being here.
Thanks, team. Thanks.